Welcome everyone into CFP today. Been far too long. Let's dive into it. We are brought to you as always by Fox 40. Very thankful to have Fox 40 on board as a partner. As always, you can check out Fox 40 gear products to make your combine run smoothly as we head towards the winter months. Yeah, it's coming. Shop whistles, stopwatches, ball pumps, more. Fox40shop.com. You can use the code CFP15 at checkout for 15% off of your order. Today on CFP Today, first of all, I just want to say thank you to everybody who has hung out with me throughout the CFL season. My year is officially done in terms of doing CFL games, no playoffs for me, so just kind of doing content, writing, CFL.ca, all the rest. But another really, really fun year, interesting year, strange year at times, I think, throughout the season. Maybe get into that over the next little while because I'm going to be doing one of these every single day, basically throughout the next 3 weeks, including weekends. Like I'm going to turn on the camera once a day from now until the CFL season, the playoffs are over, and just talk about whatever I think is kind of interesting or different. So pick a different topic each day, hang out with you for a couple minutes here and break it down. So today, what I wanted to bring up is how we got into the playoffs, which is the crazy ending of Winnipeg at Montreal. So I'm there, calling the game with Dwayne Ford. First of all, very thankful I was able to get there. I had a 9 a.m. flight out on Saturday morning from Pearson, gets delayed 3 hours, end up leaving Pearson at noon, landing at 1:15, getting to the stadium by 1:45, and we kick off basically an hour later. So little touch and go on that one. It was a little bit scary. If I didn't make it, Kenzie Lalonde would have absolutely crushed doing play-by-play. I assume that would have been the plan. I don't know. Don't know if we have a contingency plan for those things, but it was great to get in the stadium, feel the vibes, feel the energy. Montreal is going to do an unbelievable job, obviously, of hosting the East Final. They've deserved that. It's been a long time since they've had it as well. I believe since 2012 was the number that I had. But we go through the game and it's up and down, it's here and there, and there's I think too many injuries if you're a Bombers fan than you feel comfortable with, especially if you didn't end up winning the West. But they do. And the way that they won the West is the craziest thing I've ever experienced before. I probably listened back to our call on the broadcast of the strange wind that came over the stadium 15, maybe 20 times. And there were times where I listened back to it and I thought, we crushed that. Yeah, we did such a good job. And I got a couple of very nice tweets from people saying, credit to @TSN_March, did such a great job of painting the picture and whatever. I don't know, man. It's like I wish we would have punched it a little bit more to give people a real, true sense of how crazy that was, which is part of the reason why I want to do this podcast. So, for anybody who has ever been on a football field, you understand the impact that wind has on the kicking game, right? It changes what you do from warm-ups to coin toss to the week leading up. If you know it's going to be one of these late October games where you end up getting crazy wind all over the country. My experience obviously is in the East, both as a broadcaster and as a former university football player. And so this game was calm, dry. The wind at times was swirling a little bit because there was kind of little patches of clouds and all the rest moving around throughout the afternoon. But for the most part, it was sunny and the flags were drifting in the wind, calm, maybe 10, maybe gust up to 15, 20 kilometers an hour. But it's like you'd have chunks at the game where there was absolutely no wind and the sun was shining through and it was bright and beautiful. But the thing that anybody understands that's been to Percival Molson is because this thing is dug down into the ground and you are on the edge of the hill. If you've ever walked up University Avenue, I believe it's called, to get to the kind of the top of the stadium up near the McGill Neuroscience area, you understand that if you're at field level, and I'm reminded of a moment where I believe Sean White was the kicker for Edmonton, where a lightning strike came from basically behind the press box, from the opposite side of the benches, because both teams are obviously on the same side in that stadium. And Sean looks up at over the top of the stadium, sees a flash and goes, "Oh, bleep me," because he knows we're about to have a lightning delay. Well, the reason that snuck up on Sean White, and this would have been probably 4 or 5 years ago that this happened, is because you can't see any of the weather that's coming over the top of the stadium. You're so down low, and the stadium is so high on that side, plus the press box, plus the trees, and then it's Mount Royal. So anything can roll over the top of Mount Royal at any time, and if you're on the field, you don't really know. Now, there were a lot of loose leaves that were actually on the ground going into this game. A lot of the leaves had already fallen. And the ones that hadn't were going to if any significant wind came up because it was pretty late and, them getting close to drop off. So all of that is to paint the picture of weather can sneak up on you. And late in this game, Dwayne Ford, as always, does an amazing job of saying, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in the next 42 seconds here because I'm basically painting the picture for everybody of, wow, we're trying to promote the Saskatchewan game that was coming up against Calgary, trying to get our viewers from Montreal, Winnipeg to go to Saskatchewan, Calgary because we're going, hey, if Winnipeg loses this game in the next 42 seconds, that Sask game means everything. So go there, make sure that you're hanging out and listen in to the panel as they transition you into this massive game that will decide the West. And obviously, depth charts had already been designed and were out, and Saskatchewan was full go and all the rest. And then they don't end up having to do that because Winnipeg comes back and wins in those final 42 seconds that Dwayne Ford talks about. And the reason that happens is, I mentioned the leaves, I mentioned the weather sneaking up on you, all the rest. We basically had the play get whistled in, and I felt a gust of wind hit me in the face. And I'm not even on the side of the stadium that would have had the wind going towards it. So I felt it, and I looked to my left where I had seen kind of leaves drifting throughout the afternoon to see, is there anything whipping up here? And sure enough, all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose.
As all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the wind cranks up like crazy, and the flags are completely twisting, and we're getting essentially a snow shower of leaves, like a leaf tornado just came over the top of Mount Royal. And this could completely change the kick. And it's a sidewinder. It got into Zima's head, and it kicks out of bounds. Wow. That wind came out of nowhere.
This was unreal.
The football gods just smiled on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. A second chance, thanks to the weather gods smiling on Winnipeg. Low snap. Castillo steps into it. It's got the leg. It's good! The Bombers walk it off to win the West!
It's official, Marshall. God is a Bombers fan.
The CFL, pretty good.
Unbelievable.
I start seeing not just leaves flying over the top, but actually swirling in the wind because they're blowing off of the back of the stadium, flying over the top. And I started to think, we're going to have the leaves shoot down onto the field, and they're going to actually tell us which direction the wind is going. Well, sure enough, it's straight into the face of Joseph Zima. So this kick ended up happening, and he drifts it, and it's 21 yards, and it skips out of bounds, and they're immediately in field goal range. Then the rain started to come, and the wind actually died down a little bit as Sergio Castillo was getting ready to launch the game-winning field goal. But I've never felt anything like that before. Think about at any given moment over the 3 hours of that football game, if there had been a penalty that would have delayed the game, if there would have been a challenge that would have dragged the game out a couple more minutes, if you would have had more running plays than passing plays that were incomplete, the game might have even already been done by that point. The game finishes, and all of a sudden we see this massive storm blow over the top as we're doing post-game interviews, and everyone goes, wow, I wonder if that would have impacted the game. The fact that it was whistled in and then the wind hit and the rain came, and it was in the... even without knowing which direction the wind was going to go, neither team could have known that at the coin toss, deciding which end of the field you wanted to kick or receive from. All of these things played into the end of this game in a way that is nearly impossible to recreate. Almost unimaginable that it would have had that kind of impact in that moment. But here's my biggest takeaway from this entire experience. Because as much as we tried to tell everyone at home what was happening at the end of that game, there is nothing like being at the game. We talked about this obviously during the pandemic, where it was, well, the NFL can play with empty stadiums because of the television contracts. The CFL cannot. You need to have people sitting in the seats paying for tickets in order to have this league be viable. So, obviously, I love when people go out to the games. I love calling games from packed houses where it's loud. I don't give a damn if you got horns or whatever. People that go to the games, what I've always said, and I really appreciate this as a football fan as well, when I go to games like Buffalo Bills or even when I'm going to a CFL game that I'm not working, you get to pick the replay that you want. We have amazing directors and producers at TSN that can paint the picture for you and choose the best shots. But I love watching things during the commercial break, in the huddle, who's talking to each other. I love being able to see on the Jumbotron. I love being able to check where the wind is coming from because we can't always give you a shot of the flags and all the rest. The only people who really understand how violent that wind was that came over the top of the stadium at Percival Molson in Montreal at the exact wrong time for the Montreal Alouettes were the people who were sitting there. Because there was this buzz in the crowd of, wow, crazy weather moment. My goodness, what's happening? And then it very quickly went from this buzz in the crowd to, oh, this could be bad for us. And then it was. Now, thankfully, it didn't matter to Montreal because they already clinched the East. But my biggest takeaway from all of this whole experience of the crazy wind and the rain coming down and the happenstance and the timing and there's nothing like going to a game. You get to experience it yourself, you get to feel it yourself, and nothing we can do as broadcasters can properly paint the picture for you, no matter how well we think we did with the call at the end of the game. So looking forward to a bunch of packed houses, of course, throughout the Canadian Football League in the playoffs. We only got 5 games left of the year, so it should be very, very interesting to see how things turn out. Thank you to Fox 40, as always, for supporting CFP today. A tremendous end to the regular season, and looking forward to a couple of great playoff games as well coming up, beginning this Saturday. The East Division, by the way, the East semifinal, Toronto against Ottawa. That is going to be on TSN and CTV. I have a bit of a breakdown for you on that one coming up on Tuesday. Thanks for listening.